What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Channel 8 podcast. I'm very excited. We have a special guest today, one of the OGs in the Toronto sneaker game, and you might also know him as part of the Foot Locker Canada family, Lionel McDonald. How's it going?
Hey, good. Thanks for having me on, Sean.
It's a pleasure. It's been a long time, man. When's the last time we saw each other? Probably a year and a half.
Yeah, I don't know if we saw each other at all with the pandemic and all in 2020. So I think I know there were a few events that happened like right before the pandemic, but no, I've seen you around. I've seen lots of your content. You're doing some amazing things between your YouTube and now obviously starting this. So
thank you, much respect. So yeah, let's just kick things off. Normally, the first thing I like to ask is, what shoes have you been wearing in the past week or so?
Well, I'll show you the shoe that I've been wearing recently as of today. I'm sure you recognize it. So I just started wearing it again. I'm a huge fan of Canadiana, so that's kind of the shoe I've been wearing. That Terry Fox Ultra Boost. Other than that, I actually am trying to buck the trend and not wear Jordan 1s or Dunks, which is extremely difficult. I did wear a pair of Dunks last week, but really probably for the last 2 weeks I've worn just other stuff. A lot of 90s basketball, whether it's Barclays or up tempos or other stuff, but that's kind of my wheelhouse, and that's kind of what kind of got me into sneakers, like those athletes. Yeah, I know I'll go back to Jordan 1s. I probably could go 2 months like you can wear Jordan 1s, but I'm trying to give it a break because I think after the all of the things that happened with the University Blue Jordan 1 and all the chatter about that one, I think I just decided to give Jordan 1 a pause for a little bit.
Yeah, it's good to have that variety. Like for myself, so this week I've worn the Nike Huarache Scream Green, the retro that just came out. And then I tested out the Air Max Pre-Day. You've seen those, right?
Yeah, I have. What did you think?
I don't think it fits my feet. Like, my feet are a bit wider, and I think they're more of like a 70s narrow silhouette. So I don't know, I might have to go up a half size and try another color later on, but they're all right. And then I wore the Aimé Leon Dore New Balance 550 in the gray colorway. Fittingly enough, they just released the raffle for the upcoming yellow and green and the red and blue colorway today. So knock on wood, hopefully I can strike on those two as well.
Yeah, it's nice to see that New Balance is making some waves with some of their shoes, 990s and 574s, which is like one of my favorite silhouettes. It's of their line. That's my favorite, but it's good to see that there's more than, just Nike and Jordan. And I think it's great that the sneaker community is embracing it now. So.
Definitely. Honestly, variety, never a bad thing.
Yeah, competition is good, because now this will make Nike better, and Nike will come up with some crazy stuff, and that's good for the game.
And talking about crazy stuff, like I wore the my Yeezy foam runners again.
Oh, wow.
I know a lot of people hate that shoe, but honestly it's pretty comfy, and I can just slip them on and just run my errands and stuff like that. So that's cool. And then the last shoe I wore, I know you probably know this one, the Nike Air Structure Triax OG colorway that released like last week or two.
Been a fan of this Triax, over the years, and I have a few of the OG ones. Like, they're all beat up, and I would need new ones. But it was really nice to see that one come back.
Yeah, and it's good to see them sitting on shelves, and I didn't have to line up and camp out to grab a pair.
Yeah, or battle the bots, right? So
yeah. So in terms of like sneaker pickups, I know you work for Foot Locker, and you must see shoes on another level beyond any normal person. So are you still buying shoes on a regular basis? And if so, what have you been picking up lately?
I kind of really buy what I really, really like. So I think my taste is kind of all over the place. Like, it's not necessarily what's coming out. Like, what everyone is excited about, I think is cool. But I've been thinking so much about stuff that I've missed, like, and not like missed last year or the year before. Like, I think one of my favorite shoes that I've gotten recently over the many months is, like, I was on a hunt for the Black History Month 3. And it took a long time to find the right size at a reasonable price. And it's been a grail for me for a very long time. And it was just, I took so long to pull the trigger, and it's just like, hey, guess what? I'm wearing everything now. I don't like dead stock anything. Like, I don't hold on to the thing and think I'm going to resell. Like, I just wear all of my shoes. Like, unlike most other sneakerheads, I'm like in a time warp. I'm going back into the 90s and even the early 2000s and finding the stuff that I really, really want. And I've
Yep.
become very, very picky. That's what I'm most interested in. Like, my big thing right now is Barclays. Some of these CB94 version 2, I love that shoe. And it's just like, how did I not have it? I also do remember one of the reasons I didn't get the Barkley back in the day, because I remember it was like a certain Christmas and the Air 180 came out, and I wanted it. My brother wanted it. And my brother said, I'm not asking for anything else except for that shoe. And says, you're crazy. Mom and dad are not buying that shoe. And when he got it and I asked for a bunch of other stuff, I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, why did I just not pull the trigger? I should have just got the same shoe in a different size. So those are shoes that I remember from like my high school days. Another one is the Reebok Pump, the new Omni Zone 2. Like, that's a newer shoe, but it's nostalgic pieces. Why? Like, I wore it in high school. That was my high school basketball shoe. So that's why that shoe, means a lot to me. And I prefer those shoes over some of the other hype things that are out there.
It's honestly really refreshing to hear someone really know what they want and kind of stay in that lane and not be swayed by the the constant bombarding of hype from these sneaker blogs and Instagram and stuff like that. So honestly, it's really refreshing and kudos to you. I can't say the same for myself. I'm a little bit uh, in a different timeline than you, but given my platform, like I do have a lot of connections with brands. So for my pickups for the week, 3 of the 4 pairs are actually from the Adidas Canada family. So they sent me over the Pharrell Hue NMDs in the pink colorway. And then I also got the ZX 8500 Overkill collaboration and the ZX 8000 the Golf
Oh,
edition.
you got that. Wow.
And then the last pair I got was the New Balance Aimé Leon d'Or 1300, the dusty pink colorway. So that was a pre-order from last August, and then they finally started shipping them out in the past few months, and I finally got mine earlier this week. So that's it for pickups for this week. I've been always curious about how you got started with Foot Locker and when did you even get started with Foot Locker?
Wow. Mid 90s. 95 is when I started.
Jeez.
It was a part-time job. I wanted it to put me through school. So I was a business student at St. Tanya College. And I know I tried to get the job. Like, that was where I wanted to work. I was heavily influenced on Deion Sanders and Bo Jackson, and probably at that point a lesser extent Michael Jordan, because I was at that time it was I had just come off playing my first year varsity football at Windsor, but I ended up coming back to Toronto and played junior football and ended up playing semi-pro, and eventually I didn't quite make it to the CFL. I had the aspirations to do so. So I picked up a job at Foot Locker, and I only want to work at Foot Locker. Like, the stripes are iconic, and that's where I want to work. And I applied to Foot Locker 7 times, and I didn't get the job. And then my friend applied once, and he got the job. And then he had to tell the manager, say, hey, I got a buddy that really wants the job. And I remember I went in, I wore a tie and dress pants and like dress shoes. And the manager sat me down talking for 20 minutes. It's like, you had the job before you got here. So, I worked as a part-time for 3 years and then became a full-time, and then, started moving around, came downtown for a lot. I got an opportunity at the office, didn't like it after a while, and really wanted to be part of the sales team and ultimately a district manager. So I was a store manager and an MT at Toronto Eaton Center, and then I got an opportunity to be a DM. Just didn't know the catch was that I had to move to Vancouver. Was there for 3.5 years and didn't think I was ever coming back. And I got engaged at that point, and we were ready to come and to get married here and then go right back. But things changed in the organization, and then ultimately came back to Toronto and became a DM here, and been a DM for up until November of 2020, where I've now become a director of customer
Oh,
experience.
wow. Congratulations. That's huge. I didn't ask you this, but which store was the one that hired you first?
Scarborough Town Center. Right now it used to be a really small store, so it was on the upper level. It's actually where the space that Steve Madden is. So the next time you're in Scarborough Town Center, whenever this lockdown is over, go and look. Go and look. It's like on your way to the food court if you're going from the old Sears, which is what Urban Behavior or Urban Planet now,
Yep.
where the big Scarborough mural is. If you're walking from the mural, start to walk towards the food court, and you'll get to Steve Madden. You'll look and say, "My God, that was a Foot Locker." Yeah, it was, and that's where I started for my first 3.5 years as an employee in the company.
Wow. Like my earliest memories of Foot Locker was being a kid, going to the mall with my parents. They would never ever buy me any shoes from Foot Locker because the prices were just way too ridiculous for my parents. And but I always remember the striped uniforms. That was really, really iconic. And I remember stores like Fairview Mall. I think it wasn't it close to where the food court is now?
Yeah, it was. That's way back Fairview.
Whole bunch of nostalgia, but that's a whole nother story. But it's really dope to see how you've pretty much been a lifer and you've carved out this entire career for yourself with Foot Locker Canada. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's been a great company to work for, and obviously a lot has evolved over the years, and even in the last 12 13 months, going through and now navigating a team remotely through a pandemic, and then we had all the civil unrest with George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor, and the protests that were happening. And we were working on a lot of things with diversity, inclusion, and belongingness with all people, and that kind of really expedited us releasing what we were going to do and some social action things that we already kind of had planned that kind of aligned. That's what we were able, unlike some other organizations, to move much quicker because we had done so much work in the background. And it's public knowledge. You've heard our CEO Dick Johnson talk about our investment of $200 million over the next 5 years, and to be actually part of the plan and to hear the plan on some of the things that we're going to do to connect with communities, to develop and work with some of our Black associates to help grow their careers. Like it's something that we actually believe and we actually are standing for, and it's evolved into looking at other opportunities for diversity. We have a huge women's movement. We had it last year. We've talked about it in pre-years, but really this year it's kind of come to the forefront now. And we have like these employee resource groups. So there's a lot of different groups that are not your visible majority that are now being represented. And one of the ones that I'm a part of is our Build ERG, or our Black group that works on leadership. But I've also joined a couple other groups just for learning and to understanding. One is our women's group, and then obviously I was very intrigued, and obviously there's been a lot that's happened in North America, and particularly even here in Toronto, on hate crimes with Asians. So I've actually joined that team. And we talk about Blacks or women that are not quite as represented as some others. Asians are in the same boat, if not worse. So to be an advocate and to be a spokesperson for those that don't necessarily have a voice or not sure how they should communicate, I've been very active in it's a North American group, but I'm kind of like the Canadian champion.
Mm-hmm.
That I'm taking that information and sharing with the store teams, and really ensuring that they feel supported and they have a resource, even though I don't represent as a visible representation of that group. I would definitely wanted to align myself as an ally.
Yeah, that's incredible. And you highlighted something that's extremely important, because with so many issues going on in society, and a lot of the times us from the outside looking in, we're not exactly sure if what the corporations are saying is just fluff, and we're not sure if it's coming from a genuine place. But from what you're saying, it seems like it is coming from a genuine place, and that's extremely important.
It is. It is. And again, some of the challenges people don't realize is there's a lot of people to move in one direction and move them quickly that is acceptable to call it mass media or the general public. So, like, there's in excess of 35,000 associates that work at Foot Locker in North America. So it's a lot of people to move very, very quickly. So, in a lot of capacity, it takes time. But if you're thinking about these things and trying to evolve, and if you have those leaders that are aligned with those things, you can make an impact. And you don't need to work at the pace of the public. You're probably going to be actually ahead of the game because you've been planning it. So, the company from that perspective is in a very good place, and we want to do the right thing. I think that's the general sentiment that we recognize, and we are working towards making it a better place. And for our CEO to talk about that black culture shapes sneaker culture, for someone to utter those words and truly believe it, that makes it very comforting that that the business is going to go in the right place, and it's going to support the right things now and in the future.
So, being that you've been with the organization for since the mid '90s, any memorable stories or any memorable changes that you can share reflecting back after all these years?
There's so many stories. I think one of the ones that come to mind when I think stories, probably would have been All-Star 2016 is probably one of the highlights. Now, I wasn't technically in the store, I was working in another location, and I heard that actually Jordan came to the store.
Yep, I was there.
And it was just unbelievable. I saw the energy. I've seen the videos. To have someone that is the brand that we all so love for so many years, to actually for him to come to the store was pretty amazing. But I still remember, for me, like my memory is, so the store got, I guess, there was such a lineup and it was so cold, and I had to go to the store. I was working in another store that said, end your shift there and come downtown. It's out of control. We can't handle it. So I stayed to the store until I, like, literally was running the front of the store till like 2 a.m. It was like a nightclub. Like, people were coming in still at 2 a.m. We were open, if you remember,
Yep.
4 days for 24 hours. And I literally went home for like 5 hours of sleep and came right back, and I was there. But so that was the second day, and that was the really big day that we had all of the other Jordan athletes. So we had Melo, we had Kawhi Leonard, we had I remember I almost ran into Jimmy Butler, like literally ran into him, and he was injured at the time on the staircase going down to get ready for my shift. And then there was guys everywhere. And then I didn't know that, the highlight person of that day was going to be Carmelo.
That's your guy. He's your guy, right?
I am a diehard Knicks fan, and Carmelo Anthony is my favorite player in the whole league. So I had met him already once before, so that will be another story I'll tell you really quick. But there was a mass chaos, and he bought like 20 pairs of shoes and gave them away to the public. Like, says, like, first 20 people that want the shoe, I'll buy it. Just get the sizes for them. So I end up buying a shoe like on the side, and he signed my shoe, so I still have it. So it's a pretty special piece. So I think I go back to the if you go back to the mid 2000s, it was just a different time when athletes would actually just randomly show up in your store. So from Baron Davis, which I still talk to this day, like, just randomly. He says something like on Instagram, I post and I comment, and then we start going back and forth, and I tell him, like, every time, I still remember when you came in and you bought like 5 pairs of white Air Force. And it's like, I didn't get it. I knew who you were, and we were talking about who you were, and you played for the New Orleans Hornets at the time. And it's like, why do you need 5 pairs? And it's like, they're for the road trip. And it's to top up my stock. And then it's like, what stock? And it's like, I have 100 pairs in stock at my house of white Air Force. And it's like, for what? Like, oh, I wear them, and then if I wear them a couple times and they get dirty, I just toss them. But I have to have 100. It was like I couldn't believe it. But the Carmelo story is he was a rookie with Denver, so there was a few players in the store. It was like literally like 10 minutes before we closed, and it was like a Tuesday. The mall was a ghost town.
Was this at Eaton Center, I assume?
At Eaton Center, the old store when it was upstairs. So a few guys came in, and they were buying a bunch of stuff. It's like, we need everything you have in 13 and 14. Just show me. And sure enough, I go to the shoe fell off into the hallway off one of those shoe towers we had at the front of the store, and I picked it up and put it on, and all I saw was this person passed by me, but I didn't see their face. I only saw like his chest because he's 6'8".
Yeah.
So I ended up looking up and I said, "Oh, hey, Mello." And I just kept back and went back to what I was doing. And then it like 2 seconds later, it snapped and was like, "Oh my God, that's Carmelo Anthony." I was totally stunned. And so I just tried to talk to him. Like everyone else talked to everyone else. I don't think anyone really realized who he was and that he was the star player on the team. So by chance, in the back, I had this season opening Slam magazine, and he was on the cover. So I brought it out and he signed it for me.
Wow. What are the chances? That's crazy. What an incredible story. Your story about All-Star Weekend, it's funny because you probably don't even remember this, but I worked like, I want to say like 4 or 5 shifts during that time period. Because I think 306, that was the first time it ever opened, right?
Yep. It was like a temp location.
Yes, exactly. So it was the first time 306 ever existed. So I just wanted to get my foot in the door and just see what it was all about. And B, like you said, the opportunity to possibly see these icons face to face, which is incredible. So I did like a few shifts here and there. And then I remember I gave props to was it Jimmy Butler, I think, and Westbrook, and then I saw Chris Paul. I was there when Melo bought the shoes for the 20 people. I was probably 10 feet away from Michael Jordan because staff, we weren't able to take out our phones. So I told this customer next to me, I'm like, "Hey, text me that picture." So then I gave the guy my number, and he just sent me over the picture of Michael Jordan, who was like literally 10 feet away from me. So that was incredible.
I think another story, it happened on that Saturday. So right after, kind of the dust had settled and Melo had kind of done his thing. So if you remember, there was like certain launches that came out at certain times and couldn't sell it before. Well, Spike Lee grabbed me. He came in. There was like an entourage. There was like, security cleared the decks, and Spike Lee comes in, like just bypass the line. And it's like, who's in charge? I was in charge at that point. Guys were on break. So it's like, so we start talking, and I start telling him that I'm a Knicks fan. So we just then we're just really going at it, like really talking just basketball. And it's like, okay, so what can I get? And it's like, so I show him the wall, and he's just like, "No, what can I get?" And it's like, well, "What do you need?" And it's like, "Do you have this? Hold on, let me make a phone call." So I make a phone call and says like, "Can I get this?" I'm still on the phone, and it's like, "Yeah, you're getting whatever you want." So there's like, we're against the shoe wall, and I'm really not paying attention, but literally there's like 100 people around me and him, and I was just kind of to the side there. And it's like, "Hey, you please go get him this shoe." And we're just talking whatever. And then around this, call it cup of people, like some guy with like blonde hair, like, but he's black, like comes along the shoe wall and say, "Hey, what's Spike Lee getting? I want to get the same." It was Odell Beckham Jr.
What? What?
Just randomly, and it's like, "Odell, what's going on?" And it's like, yeah. What's Spike getting? I need like an 11. And then it's like, and I just decided he's getting it too. Yeah. And that's it.
Yeah.
Like, but that was just random. Like, he just looked like he just walked in from Yonge Street, but he was Odell Beckham. I don't even think he had an entourage. I don't think anyone knew who he was. It was the middle of winter, and I think everyone was all about basketball and not really thinking that an NFL player would show up in the mix. But we did see a few that weekend.
That's the beauty of hosting the All-Star Weekend. You never know who you're going to run into, which is amazing.
Yep, just anyone can show up in those cases. So
So we've been talking about like celebrities and famous people, but from a more ground level, when we're talking about like customers, have you really seen major shifts in preferences of your customers and things like that over the years?
I think it's again, the sneaker game, as we both know because we've been around long enough, it's very cyclical. So there's times that I was literally was working on an episode today about the Nike Dunk, and I remember at one point we literally couldn't give them away, and then they went away, and then 3 years later, then that's what kind of on the verge of when SBs became a thing, and then people wanted SVs, but then wanted the older ones. They wanted the white and green. They wanted the Syracuse color. They wanted the Kentucky color, the white and royal. And again, it was based off all college teams. So it was very interesting to see how that shoe's gone up and down. And then it went away for like a long time. And then now it came back, um, in 2020, and not ideal. Like, I think Nike probably had a ton of things planned, but it came back in the middle of a pandemic as part of its 35th anniversary. So there were sprinkles of really high heat ones like Chunky Dunky, and a few other ones that are like hundreds if not thousands of dollars now. But I think one of the big things about the sneaker game is people just continue to evolve to what the brands tell them is like the thing. So
Yeah, that's true.
Ultra Boost 4 years ago, that was the shoe. Like, it was as popular as any Nike shoe, and you would buy every and any color that hit the market. Fast forward to today, you'd buy any Dunk or any Jordan 1 the second you got a chance to buy it. And Jordan 1's been like that for about 4 or 5 years now. But it's I can't say that Jordan 1 will go away, but something else will now eventually interject and make itself super popular, that also then the trend, and people will collab with those shoes, and that will give them extra juice. And you can't get the collab, so you're going to get the regular one that the stores have, and eventually those shoes will start selling out. So
Yeah.
it's been waves of things. Go back 20 years, like, it was Nike Shocks and Air Max Plus, like, you couldn't get them, and people were buying them in bulk and sending them to Asia and to Europe because it was the hottest thing going. Like, a Jordan would sit for a couple days, and Air Max Plus would sell out on the day that it came out.
So you made a comment about how the tastes of a lot of customers these days is largely dictated by what the brand really pushes. And do you feel like that was the case even back in the late 90s or
It's the magic of these brands, and many of these brands are not, call it, the end result is the sneaker that you get to hold or to wear or to do what you want to do with it. The magic of these brands is the storytelling. So how they tell a story, like, how do they tell you that you need to buy a 90s basketball shoe because of the Fun Please campaign. You needed to buy some of these OG superstars because Run DMC wore them and they told a story, and hey, you got to wear them with no laces. And then you fast forward to some of the other amazing campaigns that have happened over the years. You look at Kyrie's campaign, you look at LeBron's Chosen One campaign is one of my favorite ones. So it's how they tell a story that makes you want to buy it.
over the years, like obviously you come from a place where I'm assuming you were a kid and you had some sort of genuine love for sneakers, and then fast forward over the years, like you've been working with Foot Locker, so you see shoes on a constant basis, right? So has your love and your appreciation and your taste for shoes been influenced because of your role, or have you kind of stuck with your roots?
I probably would say that my early roots were probably in the late 80s and early 90s. So this is in my formative years, and I think of probably the two that I think about because I was such a fan of football was Deion Sanders, and he had a shoe, But before Deion had a shoe, Bo Jackson had a shoe. And it was stories again, as we were talking about in the previous comment, the story they told about Bo Jackson and Bo Jackson being able to do everything and anything in this cross trainer. That was kind of the comparison. Bo Jackson was an all-star for the Kansas City Royals and in baseball, and then he played for the Raiders and he was a Pro Bowler. So this was a guy that could do anything. He could run as fast as anyone. He could, go in the gym, and he says he didn't lift weights, but he probably would be as strong as anyone that looked at his size. So that storytelling was my early love for sneakers. And yeah, I followed hip hop and I understood what Run DMC and LL with Pumas and Superstars, like those were some of my early influences. But I kind of like my eyes were opened when I saw these athletes that I very much admired in watching the NFL. And back in my high school and even then my university days, like I idolized Deion Sanders, and he was someone I truly almost modeled myself. I almost copied him. And I think even fast forward, many years later, we actually had a conference at Foot Locker, and I got a chance to first ask him a question, and I just then bypassed the question and told him that he was my idol since I was like 18 years old. And the funny thing is, this is a room of 400 people, and he ended up telling me, Lionel, come up on stage. And I was going, pardon? What? He's like, come up here. And then everyone started cheering because I kind of like literally like saying like, you're like the great, like people love Jordan. I love you. And I literally is what it came down to. And we end up talking on the stage for like probably like 10-15 minutes. And it wasn't planned. It just kind of happened.
Wow.
And then he said like, hey, can you do the Deion Sanders touchdown dance? And it's like, so I did it on stage. And then anyways, we went and asked all the questions, and he did his Q&A and his speech that he had for 35 minutes. But that was kind of improv. It only happened because for what I said.
Yeah.
And then it was over. So at that point, he's not with Nike. He was with Under Armour. So Under Armour was the sponsor. Someone from Under Armour comes to me and says, hey, Deion wants to see you in the back. And I was like, pardon? What? So he pulls me into the back, and like is a draped area, and there's like a round set of round chairs, but there's only, he asked me to sit down, and we talk and say, hey, do you need some pictures? So he took like a bunch, like he asked me to take pictures with him. So we took a whole bunch of pictures, and then we sat in the back and just talked. Like we talked football, we talked life. I told him I had an infant daughter, and he told me about his kids, and he told me about fishing. And then it was like about 15 minutes in, it's like, okay, we can go get the president and the executives that are waiting outside. I just wanted to make sure that I gave you some airtime.
That's amazing.
So when the executives came in, like everyone was like, oh my gosh, like Lionel's here. He wasn't invited to be back here. It's like executives. It's like, Lionel, you sit right beside me and everyone will just talk. So like he wanted to keep me close and involved in what was happening. And at that weekend, I actually had a jersey with me, and I had brought it with me because I heard he was there. And it's like, what is the random chance that I can just like reach over someone and ask him to sign this? And that's what I thought I envisioned was going to happen. I didn't envision that it would be taking with pictures with him backstage, and he would ask me to come back there. So anyways, like I wrote like an Instagram post that night, and I woke up the next morning to see that he had reposted it and wrote his own version. And I remember he was a little under the weather. His agent had just passed away, and he still came, and he was wondering why, like in his head, he said that there was a reason he had to come to Toronto. And he realized, or he believes God said he had to come to Toronto. So, and he already had a friend that lived here in Toronto. He's known him for a long time, but he wrote in that Instagram post, now he has two friends in Toronto.
So obviously, like you're heavily influenced by, like you said, football, and being that you've worked with Foot Locker for so long, I'm sure there's been so many campaigns that the brands have been trying to push through Foot Locker. have there been any points where you feel like, for example, you feel influenced by shocks, for example, because you see it so much, by boost, for example, because you see it so much, or are you much more like you know what you like and you stick with what you like?
I can't say in 25 years that I've never been influenced. Like I said, I would, as an example, the Adidas craze between NMD and Ultra Boost. Oh, I definitely got caught up in that. When you work in that environment, it's very very easy to get influenced. But sometimes
Yep.
you have to you say no, or you try to narrow your focus. But what always will get me is when they can ring that nostalgia bell, when they start talking about 90s basketball or 90s football. It's those types of stories that
Yep.
always kind of bring it back. Like, we use the one of the silhouettes that's come back in after many years of disappearing, is the Air More Up Tempo, which was Scottie Pippen's shoe. So I got that shoe. I worked at Foot Locker at that time. And I remember why I like the shoe is because it's where I had to go to get my first pair. I didn't even buy it in Canada. I would just by chance went with friends to Walden Galleria Mall in Buffalo. I remember being in that mall in the 90s. I was like in my early 20s, and that shoe came out in Canada, and I didn't like the black and white, the traditional one that everyone like jumps through hoops to get. They had the all white one, and I saw it, and it was like, I don't need any more shoes, but I need this because no one else has it. And people like, I remember wearing it at St. Daniel College, and people's like, oh, like people were wearing the other color, and then they would like whoa, 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 whoa. What is that, and where did that come from? And it's like, I got it in the States, and that's why I love the shoe. It's not because Pippen wore it. It's because I went to Walden Galleria to get that color that nobody else had. And I think a lot of my sneaker times, probably my first 5 years, I wanted the shoe that no one else either wanted to wear or was wearing. Like, hey, I did buy, my first, call it my gateway Jordan, was the OG Jordan 11 bread. But yeah, I like looked at the shoe and it's like, this one is different. Like I remember working on the wall, working in Foot Locker, and we had, and part of it was probably because Jordan was retired at that time, but we had tens in like three different colors, and they were just on the wall chilling. They weren't on clearance. When the 11 came, and it was like, here's Jordan. He's now back. He's back to full strength. And when I looked at that shoe, it's like, that's different, and I want that. And that's my Jordan. That's my Jordan entry to sneakers. And hey, I had other sneakers and I loved other sneakers, but that shoe got me hooked on Jordans. And it was like, oh, I'll buy one color a year of every Jordan. I'll collect them from 11 on. That was my plan because there was no such things really as retros at that time. So I bought a 12, and that was the black one. So that was my thing. It was like whatever he wore in the playoffs, that's the one I wanted to have. And then we got to the 13. I did the same, but then I still remember someone returned the He Got Game one, and it was like on clearance. So I bought that, and then someone else returned the blue and gray one, and I bought that, and then I was down the rabbit hole of buying shoes in multiple colors. And then when I kind of got set on the 13, when the 14 came out, and I love the 14, like on court, that's my favorite, my favorite shoe.
Yep.
I lost my mind, and that was the end of it. I bought every color. I bought every color that I've seen in my hand. If I could put it in my hand, I probably bought the 14. So I have like 25 colors between highs and lows. And like, I had not met another person obsessed about the Jordan 14 like I'm obsessed. But that shoe, the 14, is special to me. The OG pair I have is retired, and I'll never wear it again. That's the pair that I kissed my wife in for the first time before we started dating. And the funny thing is, she wasn't a big sneakerhead, but she was wearing the Chartreuse Jordan 14.
Just by coincidence.
by coincidence. That's what she was wearing, and the rest is history.
Yeah, wow. You can't make this up. This is better than a movie.
It's just the way it is. So
I'm just curious. So you mentioned the Jordan 11s. Were they sitting in stores back then in Toronto, or were they?
they sold, but again, employees can buy a pair before, and I don't think even I remember, like, not everyone was like gung ho on that shoe because it looks so different.
Oh
It
yeah,
had leather on it. It was a different, like, it just didn't look like a regular, but it looked like a dress shoe. That's what people said. It was like, this is a basketball shoe and this is special. I'm buying this.
but my last question I have for you. So we've talked so much about the past. Looking into the future, how do you see, like, with social media and buying things online and all those things, how do you foresee like the future of sneaker retail to be? Do you have any thoughts on that?
It's so hard to say because it's changing so fast. Like, and I think back to the past, and I know we're trying to talk about the future, but if that leads us on the path of where we're going, um, if you think back to the past, like, I remember, like, you had to go and find images online and photocopying. I know, like, associates, like, made their own launch book.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yes.
There was no way to kind of tell the story to the customer that there were shoes coming in. Here's what they look like, and you could say yay or nay. And we used to do prepay, or the whole reserve package we used to do with gift cards. And so that was a whole different time. But the customer now, and this is where I'm going with it, is the customer knows as much or more than, one, what the brand will tell you, or two, what the influencers will tell you, because the internet makes all of this information that accessible. The only people that kind of seem to know the most is those that get the information that leaks out of the factory that this shoe is being made. That's
That's true.
it.
Correct. Yep.
So the challenge now is everyone's kind of got the same deck. So, from our world, for a brand, we just have to be super educated at store level. But I think because of digitally how things are happening, I think brands are going to have to continue to find ways to tell an amazing a digital story, and really think about, how does this customer want to get it? Like, and we talk lots about the multiple ways that people can buy. You can buy it and deliver it to your house. You can buy it and have it delivered to a store. You can just go to the store and buy it. Like, there's so many different ways the customer is going to want it. We laugh and joke all the time, but don't be surprised if we get to the point that stores have robots fetching shoes out of the stockroom. Or I know we had stores, other retailers had, like, stores that had stock rooms upstairs, and they would put them down a slide to get to the sales floor. So it's evolving, and I think all the brands and all of those that sell shoes, they just want to be able to connect with the customer and give the shoe to them the way they want it. And I think the customer are those that are in power now. Hopefully that technology advances, that people can have there can be a level of equality in terms of shopping, because that's the biggest frustration. Is
100%.
it's not even I don't have the money, or I don't want to buy it. It's like, it doesn't even seem realistic that I go online at 10 o'clock and you go online at 10 o'clock, and thousands of other people, and it's not like who clicked the button first, but like, we're getting like 99% of the people do not get the shoe, and one person swallowed them up using a computer program, and now is selling it for triple the price. That's the frustration.
Hmm.
And then how does, it gets pointed at the brands and those that retail, how does that work? Other brands do different ways of trying to distribute it, but sometimes people don't believe that they're doing it fairly. So how can we find a more accessible way to get stuff to customers? I think is ultimately what the customer wants, and where the business is going to go longer term. So I don't know if the whole thing of reselling and buying will go away, because sneakers continue to be worth money. So where there's money, people will look to capitalize on it. So, I know I talked to many OGs, and could it just go back to the old days, and we just want to buy shoes because we like shoes?
I don't think there's any way that things are going to go back to the way things were, and it's just a matter of just evolving, and even the culture in itself. Like if you push away the whole resale aspect of things, there are just more people that genuinely love sneakers, and more people that actually are buying shoes for an actual appreciation for them as an art form and for performance and things like that. So I don't think it's realistic to expect things to go back to the way things were, and I think we just have to adapt and learn to live with the new reality, whether that's competing with bots or raffles and things like that. That's just kind of our reality now, and we just have to adapt.
Yep, totally.
So, Lionel, thank you so much for sharing all those incredible stories. Honestly, it humbles me because like I've only been in the game since the mid 2000s, so to hear your perspective from the early 90s and all the experience you've had, it's truly incredible. So thank you so much for
No
sharing all
problem.
those with us. If my listeners want to check you out on Instagram and your podcast, where can they find you?
Yeah, so you can find me at L_MAC42, and that's my personal account. I don't do any YouTube stuff or anything like. I just kind of follow people versus actually create my own content. But I've actually, like you, I've started my own podcast. So it's called Sneaks_Rhymes_Life_podcast. You can find the link on Instagram. You can find Sneaks Rhymes and Life also on pretty well all platforms now. It takes a little time to get unlocked on Apple. They gotta see that you're being consistent in putting out content, but it's now, as of the last few weeks, available on Apple. But you can find it on Spotify, Google, and Anchor, which is the app that I use to record. So it's been a lot of fun. I see that you're having a lot of fun with your podcast as well.
And if all things go smoothly, I should be a guest on your podcast in a up and coming future episode. So
Yep, that's the
stay
plan.
tuned for that.
All right.
So for everyone listening, the Channel 8 podcast, you can check it out on most of your major podcast platforms, including Spotify, iTunes, and Podbean. And for my YouTube channel, if you want to check out my reviews, it's youtube.com/SeanGo, my Instagram at esco8, and Twitter at sean.go spelt out. So thank you again, Lionel. It was a pleasure having you on the show, and definitely welcome back anytime you feel like it.
Sounds good. Really, really good chat tonight, and much appreciate your time.
For sure.
Okay.